Fi and my man Eric Sheethaber. We're going to be talking through tonight's Wednesday NBA slate. And I promise it actually is tonight's Wednesday NBA slate. For those of you who were there while I did a whole breakdown of a slate that had already happened. I didn't know that it had happened, but still, it was pretty funny. That's what you get when you're trying to do it when you're sailing. But we're back in it for the long haul. I'm going to be back around forever, so we're getting things figured out on the site where we revamped the Discord. We got a lot of great stuff. Brandon Cruz has joined the team, which is really exciting. Goldie's been pumping away, and then we've got me and Sheets are back from our vacations, and we're ready to get the NBA Bucks flowing with the official end of the regular season of NFL. Sheets, tell us a little bit about your trip. I had a great time. It sounds like you had a good time, and then let's jump into the slate.
Yep, the trip was good. Looking forward to developing some of my DFS content ideas. I did a video for this FPPC contest, which is actually a really interesting NFL contest. I don't know if you ever played it, but it's a cool format. It's like 500,000 for first or whatever it is. But what it is you have to take. There are 14 teams in the playoffs. There are 12 roster spots, and you have to take one player from 12 teams. Okay, and no more than one from each team, and you have to fill in like one quarterback, two running backs, a kicker, a defense, a bunch of receivers, and flex or whatever. And it's a really interesting format because you have to figure out not only like what the good players are, but how far they rate to go. And it's not so easy to say take the number one seed because the number one seed might play less games,
right?
Because they get the bye. So the premium spots are like the 2 seeds, you know. So it's a very interesting thing. I did a video for it, but I'm not putting it up because it sucked. But But I encourage everybody to take a look at the.
Where do you do that on?
I put the
link
in the NFL Discord.
The tournament's in the Discord. You can
I put the link in the NFL tournament Discord. I play it every year, but this is the first year that I'm going to actually play like more than one lineup. I'll play like 4 lineups or something. It's like you can either play for $200 entry or $35 entry. The $200 entry usually pays like $500,000 for first or something like that. It's pretty cool, and there's no changes. Everything's locked by day one, by the first game, and you just watch, you know. And if you get the team that wins the Super Bowl, you know, you get the 2 teams that are in the Super Bowl. It doesn't matter who wins, right? You have 2 teams in the Super Bowl. I mean, that's what you're looking for. But it's an interesting thing to go through, and it's really easy to build the lineups that you want, and it's definitely fun. So.
Right, I love that. Oh, I'm excited about that. I'm actually very excited about this playoffs in general because I've got some pretty heavy bets on the Ravens that are.
Dude, they're really strong.
That was the Ravens and Eagles would be ideal. The Ravens and Niners would be awesome. So that would be great.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's get into it. Today's NBA one. We'll pull up your screen. We'll go game by game here. We have some injury stuff that had already, we already knew about, like Halliburton being out, which is going to free up. That's sort of going to be my quick overview of the state is that you're going to get the value we have on Detroit and the value we have on Indy. Although the Indy value, we'll get into it when we get there, but it's going to be maybe a little harder to figure out than I think that everyone thinks it's going to be. With that said, what game do you have first? I believe it's Minnesota-Boston.
I have Minnesota-Boston, and what I want to think about is this. Have these guys played more than once this year?
No.
Okay, because I think I'm going to go back to what I did with these guys before. Like last time these guys played, it was kind of earlier in the season. And I made, for me, like a really big bet on the under in this game. I don't know if anybody remembers this. But and I even survived the overtime and it still went under.
Mm-hmm.
And like these are the 2 like best defensive teams, and I gotta check and see what the total is. But I'm inclined to do kind of the same thing.
It's 223.5, and I think I felt like Vegas adjusted because I remember last time it was like something like 230 or something like that.
I don't remember, but whatever it was, I mean, it was like 99-98 at the end of regulation or something.
Right.
So. Listen, things could have changed, whatever it is. But shout out, by the way, a good performance last night. I had him in a lineup actually. It was Karl-Anthony Towns had a big game last night. He had 50 fantasy points in blood, and they did put him in for the 34 minutes. It's so funny, but I haven't seen him with 50 in like a long time. Anyway, in this particular game, I've seen that Boston has had some value show up over the last couple of weeks, just because guys have been randomly out and stuff like that. I do see that Porzingis is questionable. I mean, if in fact he's out, we're gonna have to deal with that. But assuming that everybody's in, I really don't have. Not surprisingly, I don't have too much, if anything, from this game at all.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of things. I still think that there's value on that price tag for Towns in general. Just this is not the right, the matchup, everything like that. But under 8K, it's going to have my interest every slate because there's always a ceiling there. And yeah, as you just pointed out, he's coming off of one of those big games. I always say that, like, keep an eye out. If this game was in Minnesota, I think I'd be a little bit higher on a guy like Edwards, because I do think that even in tough matchups, like you just have to rely on the superstars more. Just what always happens in the NBA. These teams are going to take this game very seriously. Two of the best 5 teams so far in the NBA this season, Celtics being clearly the number 1. And but from a DFS perspective, I have Towns as a note, and then the whole Boston, it's impossible because Holiday's questionable. I think Holiday, Porzingis, and Horford all questionable. So what looks like nothing right now may end up being like the chalk later on. So that's just wanted to throw that out there.
Well, fortunately, by the way, a very nice slate. You have 4 7:00 games, then like 3 7:30s, and an 8 and 8:30, and then done. It's a
beautiful,
real early to bed, early to rise. You know what I mean? Like, it's a nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is. I love this. It makes it, and even with when there are some of the later games, I hope that they'll keep doing, giving us the little break of the slates, because it's just gotten so out of control and people are so frustrated. Hopefully, we'll have it a little easier. All right, we can move on to Washington, Indiana, in what should be one of the highest scoring games of all time. 252.5 over under.
Well, when you were away, I think there was a 260.
Yeah, no, that's what I was. It's sort of a joke because every week it feels like there's another new one that's one of the highest ever. Who was the 260? Was it Indy and Milwaukee?
Yep,
that's probably what it was. Yeah.
But then again, that had Halliburton playing. So if you have Halliburton not playing, it's harder to get to the 260.
Absolutely, and I think that there might be maybe a little bit of an edge on the under here. Anyway, what are your thoughts on the?
So here's the difference. All right, so. Here's something you've heard me say before. Andrew Nembhard is currently rated as the top point per dollar play on the slate, and he's basically destroyed like many bankrolls in the last couple of weeks when that's happened. But you've even said, people don't realize like the difference between when he's playing with Halliburton and when he's not. And if people and right now, once again, he rates to be a top point per dollar play on the slate, but it's different this time because there is no Halliburton. So he's a better play now than he was at the same price, at the same ownership, right? Like with Halliburton on the court. So I'm inclined to play him in this situation. I hope people realize how much usage like Halliburton eats up.
Yep.
So other guys in Indiana, listen, good on them for pricing McConnell up to where I don't know if I could play him. I don't know. You tell me if you play him at that price, but he's not showing up at such a great price. See Miles Turner kind of okay at 6,800. He looks all right. Jalen Smith okay at 5K. But I would expect. Listen, with Halliburton out, you'd expect to see more. But look, they're sharp over there in DraftKings. They're making life a little difficult. So not getting too much really, except for Andrew Nembhard. And then the other side. Yeah, even with Halliburton, now this still rates to be probably a fast game. So, Kuzma, Tyus Jones, those are my 2 favorites, and neither of them look like they're getting too much ownership. I'm just kind of out on Jordan Poole. I think I think eventually he's going to smash and someone's going to have him, but I just kind of think I'm out. Kuzma, Jones, those would be my top 2 from Washington.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one because on the Washington side, I actually think like you could make a lot of good cases. I think Kuzma is my favorite. I think Jones is my second favorite, sort of like you, I guess. But I do have interest in Poole a little bit, and I have a little bit of interest in Avdia. I think all of those plays are strong. I think on different slates this year, we have more value today. But like these guys like Kispert and DeLon Wright, I'm not suggesting you play them today. It's just interesting to see, when we left before, guys who were projecting for almost 5x or 4.5x at 4K were like 50% owned. You know what I mean? Right. Yep. And now we've got a little bit of a different situation. I also want to get Daniel Gafford into the pool. Indy does tend to play, a big, like pretty much all the time. And I think Gafford always has a ceiling. So I definitely have interest here, but mainly it's Kuzma and Jones. I do think that the game stack may be in order. I like, the Nembhard thing for sure. I like Jalen Smith a lot. I think that, and again, you get the forward eligibility. He's been playing well. It's a 5K, nice little 5K price that I feel like there's a safe enough floor and enough of a ceiling to play him. I think it's a little interesting that I thought Turner was going to project even better. I thought he was going to be an obvious one, but I like Miles Turner. And I will be the person who goes out of the way. I probably, and look, you can totally play them together. They're going to be on the court at the same time, Nembhard and McConnell. But I probably will take the overweight McConnell sticker shock thing. Of course, I'd like to see a starting lineup before I do anything. But I'm sort of on the side of I think McConnell can still get there. I just think this game has so much fantasy goodness. You want pieces from both sides. But the number one, Nembhard, Smith being my favorite from Indiana, Jones and Kuzma being my favorite from Washington. But I am very, very open to like literally anyone who's getting minutes in these games. I think that we can take some shots. And it's interesting to see how things change, right? Now Buddy Hield is back to the old role again. You know what I mean? He was 6,500 as chalk every night before. Now Matherin's been crushing it. Or he's had some games where he crushed it. He's got a wide range of outcomes. Maybe that's something we could do. I think there's a lot of ways to get different within this game, but I just have right now, this is the priority target of the slate for me as a game, just because of the environment. And I still think that the under is a reasonable thing to take a shot on, but still 252.5 is a really, really high total, and two teams that don't play any defense and love to run up and down. So I think they're going to do that even without Halliburton. My guess is they don't want to change anything because you have a very, very stubborn coach in Indiana who's an awesome coach, who's done an incredible job, by the way. I just want to throw something out as an aside. Carlisle was Mr. Defense, old school kind of a guy. Talk about really being able to change your stripes, man. He said, nope, we're going to do the exact opposite of everything I've done my whole career. We're going to run and gun, forget the defense, we'll outscore everybody. And it's been pretty fun to watch, and it's been successful for them. So you got Matherin called up there. Do you want to throw anything out there on him before I get out of here?
Yeah, sure. You kind of alluded to him, sort of. He's putting up good fantasy point games with Halliburton on the court. He doesn't exactly do the same things that Halliburton does, obviously, and boy, it seems like kind of amazing that we were able to play him at 4,700.
Right.
But I think in this game, listen, if you want to stack this game, I think you kind of have to include him. So yeah, I'm kind of like Matherin as well.
I agree. The problem I have with this game, the more I look at it, like there's 9 guys I'm interested in on Indiana, and there's 6 guys on Washington I'm interested in. So I'm going to have to obviously make some cuts somewhere. All right, Sacramento at Charlotte. What do you got here?
Sabonis is coming off an enormous game last night. It was it's a weird game. They were getting smoked by Detroit in the first half. They were down. Mm-hmm. The first quarter they were down 20. Mm-hmm. And then they outscored them by 20 in the second quarter. Mm-hmm. And then they eventually kind of took over. Back-to-back is not the greatest, and I don't particularly like to play guys off of big ceilings like that, so I'm probably not going to get to Sabonis. Aside from him, Trey Lyles, I bet he gets owned today just because he's 3,900, unless something else shows up. Again, I'm looking at my point per dollar rankings here, and there's just not a lot. So that's why you're going to see, like, for at least a while until something happens, like 15% ownership on Trey Lyles. So he's going to show up for me. Mm-hmm. Miles Bridges, 8,200 seems like a lot, but reasonable ownership, definitely has upside. But the guy who's just really been I don't want to say a second resurgence because he's always played like this, but he's just, I don't know. But Terry Rozier has just freaking been doing it, man. Somebody made an interesting stat observation. I don't have it exactly correct. I never really followed this, but he leads the league in like touch time or something like that in the last 3 weeks or something like that.
Yeah.
Which doesn't surprise me.
Yeah,
at all. So if he's going to continue to put up these kind of minutes and these types of numbers, and listen, from what I hear, like LaMelo's close maybe to come back. And so it's Terry Rozier is going to probably continue to take advantage of this. And this is against a team off a back-to-back. It could continue to be a fast-paced game with not a lot of defense. And I guess this is where you almost want to start your lineup. Sure, there's one other guy I really like a lot also, but Terry Rozier is just a really good player. I'm seeing 25% ownership. I certainly not surprised at that, and I don't know how to argue with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I have Rozier as a staple. I think he's one of the guys you just want to play today. I'm sort of, I usually go on the other, I'm going to go on the other side real quick. I do think Lyles, he played 30 minutes last night, and I don't know if he's played back-to-back games, and he's only projected for 24 minutes. It still projects really well. I have interest in Lyles, but I don't think it's a must. I also think that, we've seen Sabonis in the past get a little, play a little bit less on the back-to-backs, although he's had some good games as well. So I think Lyles is probably my one piece from Sacramento that I'm heavily interested in, with the exception of Kevin Huerter's 4,700, which is not like we've seen him bust a million times and everything like that. He'll get a little bit of ownership. But can I interest you in a little bit of a Malik Monk revenge? They drafted him. They didn't really give him a fair shake there. This guy will take any shot he wants anyway. There's all kinds of ways this game could play. It's the second end of a back-to-back. Maybe if Sabonis and Fox are a little bit, I don't want to say limited, but maybe not playing as long as stretches, maybe Malik Monk can carry everything. It's a little pricey for him, but I think I might want to do that. And I'll buy the revenge narrative on the Malik Monk here tonight. So I'm gonna gamble a little bit of Monk back there. And if not, I do think Huerter is reasonable enough to take a shot on. It really depends on his ownership, because it's 4,700, but we've seen the consistent lack of production. But Rozier being the best play in this game for me, I do think Bridges is a solid play as well. And then you get into the Brandon Miller. Really, I'd like to know if we'll get the news beforehand, but Cody Martin's still questionable. I'm assuming that he plays right now, and these guys still look pretty good. But if Cody Martin's out, I think you could give another little bit of a boost to Brandon Miller, I guess. I don't know if I'd get to McGowan's. And then I think Nick Richards and Gafford are both you can kind of decide between the two of them, but I think they're both interesting. So, yeah, I agree with you on the Charlotte side is another one of these places where we want to get some stuff, but Rozier being the number one piece for me in this game.
Now, and keep in mind, he does have a range of outcomes. He can go 4 for 20.
But that's the thing. At least we know we're getting the 20. You know what I mean?
Yep, that's right.
That's gonna happen. He's not going like 2 for 7. That ain't gonna happen.
That's true.
All right, San Antonio, Detroit.
Yeah, so I'd like to talk about San Antonio for just a minute. So again, this happened before you. I think it was the day we left or something like that. No, I was watching the Milwaukee game. I don't know if you saw this. This is actually the day before we left. This was like one of the most amazing games I think I've ever seen when they played Milwaukee. And I say that only because of everything that was going on. You had Wembanyama against Giannis. And basically, it's so funny. They showed a picture of Giannis when he was Wembanyama's age. And they look very similar, actually.
Yeah.
And it's kind of scary to think what Wembanyama would be if he looked like Giannis right now.
Yes.
Pretty freaking frightening, if you want to know the truth. And they were going back and forth at it, and Wembanyama in quote only 26 minutes, right? He was just insane. He had 10 different highlight reel clips from that game. I don't know if anybody saw it.
I did watch all the highlights of that one. That was incredible.
It was just ridiculous. He had this one fast break thing where Lillard tried to cut him off. He went behind the back around Lillard, then dunked over Brook Lopez.
Right, and then he had to quick dunk it over Lopez before he got there. It was pretty awesome.
Seriously, you know what I mean? And then the guy was insane, and Giannis was awesome also, and it was great. And then the other thing I got to see when I was watching this is that, my son Matt was saying is what's Pop going to do? Is he going to actually stay? I'm like, I don't know how much he's got in him, but San Antonio, they got some players.
Well, he just signed a 6-year extension, so I hope he does stay.
I mean, because they got some players over there. I don't know. Listen, it seems like they're just kind of joking around right now. But I was watching like Keldon Johnson. He can play. Devin Vassell. He can play. They got some guys there. Listen, they need somebody else, but whatever. So I bring that up, only because these guys, when they get going, they have some upside. They have some talent. Anyway, Wembanyama, unfortunately, at 24, 26 minutes, yes, he could get there. I just can't. I just don't think I can do it. I just don't think I can do it. And then even Sohan had a good game. So anyway, I'm not really getting to anybody really in San Antonio except maybe Trey Jones at 5,800. And he looked really good. Again, I never really get a chance to watch San Antonio because when I watch them in fantasy, I only get to see them for 3 quarters anyway because they're always blown out.
Right.
But they got some dudes over there. Anyway, on the other side of this, you got Detroit, who is just a freaking – if they weren't a train wreck already, now they have freaking Cade Cunningham out, right? So, Jalen Duren, I played him yesterday. He had 20 fantasy points in 8 minutes. And then got into enormous foul trouble and he was done pretty much. But I have him rated as a good point per dollar play. I have Killian Hayes right back as a good point per dollar play. Bojan is not, is a pretty decent play as well. I do think that, both of these teams, what do they have, like 5 wins between them or something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, I think they both are really going to try, whatever that means. And I definitely don't think too much defense is going to be played in general. This seems like an over, if you want to know the truth. If you were going to bet this. So I don't know, maybe now I'm thinking of it, maybe you do want to play Wembanyama. Maybe you do want to stack this game somehow. I don't know. Because I'm seeing Durant good point per dollar play. I'm seeing Hayes good point per dollar play. Seeing Bojan reasonable point per dollar play. Trey Jones, Vassell. I don't know. What do you like here?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because the Duran projection I think is going to come down. I think it's a little ambitious to just pencil him in for 40 fantasy points,
Right?
Especially on a back-to-back off of an injury. Like I don't know, It doesn't seem quite right. But he does look good. And I'm sort of going reverse here, but I have it Duran, and then I think I actually like Ivy better than I like Hayes. Hayes is the obvious play. Maybe I just like Ivy more because the ownership's going to be low. Sort of look, you can play 2 really, really good plays of teams that are missing their guards, and Ivy and McConnell at low ownership at 6,800 and 6,700 as a way of getting different than the 5,200 and 5,500 of Killian Hayes. And today, like maybe go that route instead, just for the ownership's sake. And I do. Ivy's been good enough, especially without Cunningham. So I like all 3 of those: Hayes, Ivy, Duran, Ivy. Ivy and Duran being my favorites. And then on the San Antonio side, I still think you can play Wemby. It feels a lot like this first year we had with Joel Embiid when he came in, and he was like, nobody knew what to do with him because he was always like, he's only playing 24 minutes as a max, but he's putting up 50 fantasy points every night, and he was like 8K, and like people just like, can he keep doing it? Can he keep doing it? Well, Wembanyama certainly can keep doing it, and this is a perfect matchup. The problem is, are there other players that have maybe more of a ceiling because of the minutes? And it's really just the minutes obviously that's the only worry for any of us. We expect him. What is he projected right now at about 26 minutes? I think that's still reasonable enough to take a shot. How much of it I end up with? Probably not much, but definitely more than like a 5% ownership currently being projected by the field. And then I like the other pieces. I think Trey Jones is fine. And I think that, playing one of Vassell or Johnson, my preferred option would be Vassell, I think are totally reasonable. So that's sort of the way I have it broken down. I think Sohan is fine, but I don't think it's like an exciting play. I think this is there's a lot of good spots on this slate tonight. I'm gonna have to sort of like thin my pool because I've already got like 12 guys that I'm pretty interested in. So anyway, we can move on. What do you got next?
Yeah, so Philly, Atlanta. I think I'm finally going to do it. And when I say finally going to do it, I think I'm going to do it, and it's going to work because I played him before, and he averages about 0.6 fantasy points whenever I play him. But I got the matchup, and I think I'm going to play Tyrese Maxey again, and I think it's going to work for me this time. I have no idea why. I think so, but I like him pretty much. Do I like him more than Rozier? I mean, maybe. Like that's the guy that I was considering. I like them both. So I like Tyrese Maxey. Great matchup. And the other guy again can't quite get right is Tobias Harris. I wouldn't play them both together, but I think one of those two guys. I'm going to play Maxey. He's going to have the ball more. I like him the most. On the Atlanta side. They all seem pretty fairly priced, I think. So I don't know. I don't know what I would really get on the Atlanta side, but I do like Tyrese Maxey quite a bit.
Yeah, if the slate, this is why it's hard to play Embiid, right? The first 2 things I would do on this slate would be maybe not the first 2, but 2 of the first things I would do would be putting Maxey and Rozier in my lineups. I think they're both tremendous plays. I love both of them. I actually disagree about the playing him with Harris. I think that's actually totally fine. But sure, maybe we want to split it up because there's enough good spots today. Just remember, Atlanta's an unbelievable spot to attack. So I like both of them quite a bit. And I will also get a little bit of exposure to Reed and Oubre We do have D'Anthony Melton questionable, which is pretty relevant actually, and these guys are going to look even better if he's out. I'm not sure that we're going to necessarily get another piece that we would use, but I do think Oubre, Harris, Maxey would all look like better plays. And I'm okay. And again, Paul Reed falls into that same category of, okay, we have Nick Richards and we have Gafford. I think all of them are interesting enough, and none of them are, I feel like, are musts. But Maxey and Harris are the two that I would focus heavily on here, and I will be well overweight on whatever ownership they have because I am extremely high on them in this spot. I wish I could find something on the other side that I was a little more excited about. Kongwu, I guess, at 4,800 is interesting because Capella's questionable. I guess we have to wait for that. Trae Young is probable, so he's going to play. I wouldn't hate the idea of maybe taking a shot or two on DeJounte Murray, but I don't think I'm going to be able to get too much from Atlanta outside of maybe a somewhat thin Kongwu play that may not be thin at all and maybe the chalk of the slate if Capella ends up out. So that's what I've got.
True. That's true.
All right. Next up, we've got OKC Miami.
You got a couple of slow games back to back here with OKC, Miami, and Houston, Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Butler's out for Miami. I guess Bam and Hero would be my favorites. And Hero, 7,900 seems perfectly reasonable without even with him in. but I think Hero seems reasonable. OKC plays really good defense. I mean, they're just a really good basketball team now, as you told me earlier in the season. And on the OKC side, I mean, sure, you could play Shea, I suppose. He's always got upside, but I mean, Miami's been defending point guards for like a long time. So I'm probably off in this game if you want to know the truth.
I like the Hero idea. OKC tends to play fast. I think they're going to need scoring to keep up. I also like the idea of Bam. I know Chet's a really good overall defender, but like there's nobody with the size on OKC to even come close to matching up. This could be one of those 20 rebound type of games for Bam. So I have Hero or Bam, and I right now Hero would be the priority for me. And you get other so the problem you run into, like we said, like you get the Rozier, who we both like at 8,500. You got the 8,900 that we both love of the Maxey. And then Hero becomes harder to play, which just means the ownership stays a little bit lower. But I like the idea of getting all three of those guys because what happens is then you're going to have one spot for Nembhard or McConnell, I guess. But if you play all those four, then you lock up the utility spot, and it's just a very specific build that I don't think many people are going to do. So I kind of like it, and I think Hero or Bam for me. I think Josh Richardson is going to look like a really good play. I don't know that I want to do that on this slate. I'm keeping an open mind to it, but as of right now, I don't have anybody else as a priority in this one. This is not my favorite game either. Speaking of not favorite games, we have the Bulls and
I'm reading something which is like sort of amazing. So first of all, I can't believe that Vooch is back so soon. But nonetheless, I don't know if I've seen this. Both him and Drummond had 20-10 games in this last game.
That's crazy.
That's what it says. Let's see. Vooch was 21-10, and then Nembhard, and then 21-15 for Drummond.
Yeah,
that's a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
I like. You know who I like? I think I like Sengun here. That's what I like. Anything else from this game? Let me just see. No. I mean, for me, that would be my play. I if I can afford Sengun in light of all the other good stuff I want to play, that'd be great. If Okongwu shows up as like this big value, I might have to play him at center. So I don't know, but Sengun, I mean, which one of those guys are going to guard him? I don't think either of them. I think he have a really big game here.
Yeah, well, the only thing is that this is the Bulls, what they're good at. They are really good in the interior. They do not give up any rebounds. They do not give up much scoring. Whereas they do give up a ton of three-point shooting.
Okay.
I think Jalen Green is a really interesting large field tournament play.
All right.
His minutes are always going to be in flux. You have a very, very wide rate because they're going to just bench him sometimes in the fourth quarter. That's just what happens. If he's not shooting well, if he's not playing well, that's what happens. But there is upside here. So he's my super get weird play. I don't know that I'm going to end up with really much of it. I don't love this game in general. So that's the one thing I came up with that I kind of shit in. I'm interested to see what the hell happens with this LaVine coming back thing. It surprises me that he's playing for them again. I also think the projection might be a little bit selling him short. So I think that would probably be my favorite play in this game would be to get to some LaVine. He's 6,700. They're probably going to trade him. They're still trying to win games. They played better without him for a while. Then it sort of fell apart on them at some point. I'm kind of interested in taking the shot on LaVine today. That's probably my favorite play here. All right, and then we have the late night hammer, which is not even that late at night. So, what do you think about?
I'm a little confused. So the first thing I was going to say is, okay, so it's everybody's fairly priced, whatever it is. It's not. I haven't really played like New Orleans guys, but then Zion is questionable. Obviously, we have to wait to see if he's out. What to make of that? I was looking at Golden State and see Chris Paul is out. And Chris Paul's we get to see something I haven't seen in like a long time. That's like Steph Curry, like a point guard, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is this a bad play? I kind of like him. It's like listen. I know that Maxey has the better matchup, but for 300, dude, I don't know, man. I get a chance to play Curry at is low ownership? Is this possible?
Yeah.
With no Paul?
No one's gonna play him.
And I don't know, man. I might be forced. Listen, nothing else works. I may as well try this. I don't know. So I kind of like that. It's certainly not going to be based on anything projection based, but whatever. And then you have these guys. Okay, so when I last left this sport, you had Kuminga with a huge game here on the second. After that, okay, only played 19 minutes against Denver. Played a full 36 minutes against Detroit. Did nothing. Well, I shouldn't say nothing, whatever, but certainly you wouldn't want that. So yeah, so maybe Kuminga is not completely broken out yet, but he did have a good run in a couple of games. Mm-hmm. Wiggins is cheap enough, 4,900. Let's see how the Jackson Davis ended up. So yeah, so he has been starting. The Denver game was an impossible spot for him. He wasn't going to do anything against him. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think he remains a good play. He did put up 40 in his last game. I wasn't around for that.
Yeah,
27 minutes, 40 fantasy points. And listen, when he's playing well, that's what it's gonna be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of like that, and I kind of like Curry. I don't know how I'm gonna play him.
Mm-hmm.
I want to play these other guards. That's the problem. But I don't know. That's gonna be my stupid casual play of the day, I guess. Is dude, Paul's out. I'm playing Curry. So I don't know.
Yeah, so my favorite play, like I don't like much in this game. And my reason for not liking Curry is because I like Maxey and
exactly right. Yeah.
But that also means Curry's going to be unowned. So I think it totally makes sense. And also like he can always just shoot himself into a game. It just hasn't happened as much this year. It's very strange what they're doing with the minutes in Golden State. I have a feeling they're going to be a lot more tight than what they're currently being projected. They seem really spread out in the projections. I think it's worth taking a shot on a guy who no one's going to play tonight in Moses Moody at 3,800. He just put up 30 the other night, and we don't really know what the situation is going to be without Curry. I think gambling on his minutes is just something I would consider if I had
without Paul.
Without Paul. I think he's interesting.
Dude, and he's small forward eligible.
Yeah, I just think it's an interesting, like, get different, get weird spend down that I just don't see anyone doing. All like Podziemski, I'm sort of surprised they're not projecting a little bit better for Podziemski. I think those guys are fine. I just think I like the other games better. And the forward eligible, like you mentioned with the Moody, is part of what drew me to that 3,800. And I can't really get to much on New Orleans and without Zion. And even without Zion, it doesn't become this clear, okay, you must play somebody else, because we haven't had Zion and we haven't necessarily seen those things. You have a guy like Joval, if Zion's out, who I think literally could put up like 50, or they just wouldn't play him because the game would be too fast paced. Like, it's just, I can see it going either way. So this game has more question marks for me, which means I probably leave it on the outside looking in, with the exception of the get weird Moody play. But and I'm okay with the Trayce Jackson Davis, but just want to throw this out there. Like, if we're going to be playing Trayce Jackson Davis the same price as all those other centers that I mentioned, I just want to point out that he has a much wider range of outcomes than any of those guys do. And he gets treated as if, because people were playing him at 3,500 and he was just, 10xing. I think that people are treating it as if that he's like I don't know. I hear a lot about him being this awesome play. I think you're more likely to get 30 fantasy points out of Gafford. I think you're more likely. I think it's close, probably. They all have some risk. I'm not currently planning on playing Trayce Jackson Davis in the matchup. I really have a hard time seeing him being able to physically match up with whether Zion plays or not, whether it's Joval. Like, it's just really hard for me to see. But yeah, certainly nothing wrong with it. Mostly, again, too many question marks for me. I did make my priority list: Maxey, Hero, one of Nembhard or McConnell. Probably Nembhard is the logical one. I like the idea of getting one piece on that Washington side, Kuzma being my favorite, followed by Jones, Poole, and Avdia, and Terry Rozier, obviously, as we mentioned. So it's going to be that I'm gonna be spending for those 7 to 9K guards, and then figuring out what else to do elsewhere. And I can't emphasize enough that I will definitely be way overweight the Philadelphia guys. And I will be way overweight both sides of the Washington, Indianapolis game.
I'd like to point out a couple of things I just noticed when I was just building these lineups. Listen, don't sell short this concept. Like Okongwu is forward eligible, and that's like a big deal. As is Trey Lyles, like, for example. And I didn't realize that Okongwu was forward eligible. I mean, I almost want to play him anyway.
That does make a big difference.
At 4,800. I say that because, like, in this particular build, which is, listen, it's 1245. It's going to change 100 times. Like, I could play all of them. I could play Maxey, Rozier, and Curry.
Right.
Listen, you got to play Moody. You got to you got to be whatever. But if Okongwu is like a good play, for example, then I'm very comfortable with this. So I don't know if he's a good play yet. He's going to be a really chalky play if Capella's out.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I listen. I like the Maxey. I like the Rozier. I think that we both like that. I think a lot of people are going to like that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't know. I don't think I've actually needed Curry for a GPP in 2 years. But I don't know. It'd be fun to need him every once in a while. I don't know. And I don't have to stay up till 1 a.m. to watch him this time.
Yeah, that's true. It's kind of nice to have it earlier. And Jolly, I just want to mention something that he's saying in here, because he's saying New Orleans been smacking everybody. So New Orleans has been in they've had 3 blowouts in the last 5 games that they've blown somebody out, and they've had 3 blowouts in the last 15 games. I think it's really, if you really believe that they're gonna, I think you just save your DFS money and just bet them. They're only a 2-point favorite here in Golden State. I don't buy this that somehow Golden State can't keep up with New Orleans at home. I'm just completely never going to buy that. New Orleans is good. They're going to have some hot shooting nights where they're going to look really good. But I wouldn't play the reserves in the Warriors are going to get killed at home mode. I think that's completely wrong. It's just, I couldn't disagree with that more. I do think Moody still is in play, and you could play the reserves, but I don't think you're playing them because you're counting on a blowout for New Orleans. That's just completely wrong in my opinion. And we don't have the 2 late night games, but should we, I was wondering that going forward, maybe we could touch on it. Do we touch on it during the live stuff? I can
throw sure. That makes sense.
So later on, we'll touch on the 10 p.m.
Hang on, before we do anything, let's do a Saberson build. And I haven't done this yet, so let's just see what it would come up with. And I imagine it's going to be 100% Nembhard just for openers. Oh, Landry Shamet is out. I was unaware. I don't know if that's relevant. So I'm presuming, again, since there's nothing good under 5K, that that I bet you're going to get a lot of Lyles, and I bet we're going to get a lot of Nembhard, and that Maxey, Rozier. I think we'll get Maxey, Rozier, Nembhard, Lyles would be the main core.
I think that's probably right.
Who do you think of anybody else that'll be who's going to crack the top 4 of ownership, except for those?
Those are the ones. I think all the ones you mentioned are pretty reasonable. I think Kuzma might be higher owned than but he won't be like 50%. He'll be like, I'm saying on SaberSim, they'll probably put you like 30 or 40 of them. That would be my guess. They tend to go pretty hardcore though. They tend to try and keep that pool pretty narrow. So we'll see.
Well, we're getting there. All right, loading.
Hero would be my other one, but
Hero. Let me see.
if he had forward eligibility, he'd be popular.
All right, so Neimark, Hayes, I forgot about.
Oh, Hayes, yeah.
So Neimark, Maxey, no, what's his name? Terry Rozier all the way down here. And Trey Lyles, they're not interested. Oh, he's over around here. Jalen Smith, I forgot this other. Tobias Harris, Maxey, Duran. We mentioned all these guys, all these Detroit guys. And Detroit, Indiana,
Yeah,
that's where it's all coming from. Plus Tobias Harris. To the two Philly guys you mentioned, Rozier, Detroit, Indiana, that all makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the one-on-one guy again who's showing up again because of the pricing is Josh Richardson. Any interest in that, or?
I mentioned that one. It's one that I was, hoping not to over today. I certainly understand it. He only has the guard eligibility, so for me, he probably ends up more on the outside looking in, like the other guards too much. But I mean, it's interesting because I'm just personally very, very high on those spending up at guard and then throwing in one of the Neimark or McConnell. So or Hayes. I mean, it's just for me. I think he probably ends up, if he had forward eligibility, it probably would be like a guy to have everywhere. But because he doesn't, I don't think I will.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you one play that you mentioned, which I like a lot, especially now that I'm seeing that what's his name is going to be played, Killian Hayes, is Jaden Ivey. I think I think he's a good pivot off of those guys.
Yeah, and I think that's probably I'm going to probably have at least one build that I do the Ivey and McConnell and skip the Nembhard and Hayes. You know what I mean? Just the flip side of it. It's the same game, same exact situation almost.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a and you haven't looked, but if you want to do it with me, I mean, I'm doing I'll do a golf thing within the next. You want to just like wing it with me, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll wing it with you.
Okay, so we'll fire that up. You want to fire that up in like 10 minutes or something?
Sounds good to me.
All right, sounds good.
All right, bud. Good luck today, everybody. See you at 6.
Okay.